Hey everyone, my name is Drew Brashler, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make a DIY Waves SoundGrid server that you can run with any SoundGrid applications, and for instance for me today, the Avid S6L with the Waves card. So if you're anything like me, I purchased an S6L and I also purchased the Wave X10 Extreme C server, and then realized that there was a little warning on the website that said that the X10 was not compatible with the current version of the Avid software, and that functionality will come soon. So unfortunately, that guy won't work for me for today. However, I do have this old computer that's sitting right here. That's an i7, and we are going to make this work with the SoundGrid software and work as a SoundGrid server for us. We first want to install our hardware on the device that we're planning on using this for. If we're planning on using it with like a super rack like this, and this is version 13, then we need to install version 13 software on our DIY SoundGrid server. But for the Avid S6L, I am on version 10 because that's what version this works with this specific version of the S6 and E6L engines. So I have this installed, and what we're going to do is we're going to boot in to the Windows side of the console and get some files, put them on a USB drive, and then save it to that SoundGrid server that we are making. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to boot into Windows, and to do that on the S6L is we would go to the Options and System page, and then we would double tap on Mode to get us into Config, and then here what we would do is we would boot into Windows, and to do that we go Control and then hit Shutdown. So I'm gonna do that here real quick. Once we do that, we go ahead and exit to desktop. This will interrupt audio, so please be careful. So what I have here is we now have Windows up on this screen here. And what we're going to do is we need to come up with a window specifically in this. And so what we're going to do is we're going to grab our keyboard and we're going to type %, program data, P-R-O-G-R-A-M, and then data. And then we are going to add one more %. So it's going to look just like that, program data. And then we're going to press enter. Once we do that, we double click into Waves. We go into SoundGrid firmware. We then go into SGS. And then we want to copy this file in its entirety to a hard drive. So I have it on my, my Waves hard drive here. So I'm just going to copy this guy. Copy, and we're going to paste it right here. Okay, so we now have this file. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna hop onto a different computer with this USB drive. One thing I wanna mention before I go too far down this road of installing this WFI file is that you can actually download this on anything that you can get a SoundGrid license for. So you can download the free SoundGrid for Studio that Waves offers. You can actually download that for free. And then that will give you that SoundGrid plugin file that we're looking for, that WFI file. So if you don't happen to have an S6L and you're looking to get this working on, say, version 13, then what you can do is this. Okay, so we're again going to type in, this is my other computer. We can go ahead and type in %, program data %, just like that with the capitals, and we can go ahead and press enter. And once we do that, we can grab our mouse here and we're going to go down to Waves Audio. Once we go into Waves, we can go into SoundGrid firmware and then SGS, and it's sitting right here. So I actually have the 10.1 as well as the 13.7. So I could choose either of these depending on what SoundGrid I'm planning on running. Because the venue is running version 10, that's what I need to run. But because Super Rack is in version 13, if I was to use this Wave server with Super Rack and I was running version 13 files, then I would need to use the 13.7 WFI. So I have my Waves DIY hard drive here, and I copied in my SGS 10.1.WFI. If you have a version 13, this will be 13. whatever, but it is the WFI that we copied off the console. So I'm going to just go ahead and drag this to the desktop so we can copy it there. Once we've done that, we want to download a program called Rufus, which you can download at rufus.ie. after we have installed Rufus, we want to go ahead and open it up, and I have my USB device right here called Waves DIY. And what we're going to do is we're going to click down Show Advanced Drive Properties, and once we toggle this, it's actually going to show us more options in our boot selection here. So we're going to click that, and then we're going to go ahead and select syslin Linux 6.04. And when we go ahead and format this, it's going to ask us to download this, and so you will need to download it. And so once we have done that, we're going to title our drive label if we want to. We are going to do it as a FAT32. Quick format, and this will delete everything on the drive. So don't use a drive that you want to keep anything on. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and press start. And it's going to tell us that data on the device will be destroyed. We're going to press OK. And there we go. We have that set. So we can go ahead and close this. So we can go down and verify that we've installed this by going to your USB drive, and we can see that we have a couple auto run files and an LDI or ldlinux.c32 file. So that's all set. The next thing that we want to do is we want to open up our SGS 10.1 .wfi file. We want to open this up in 7-zip. So we are going to open the archive, and what we're going to do is we're going to extract this file, and we're going to extract this to our USB drive, to the root. So we're just going to, again, open it up in 7-zip, which is a program that you will need to use. And then we're going to open it up, and then we're going to extract this to our hard drive. So once we do that, we can press OK, and then we can close out. And so now we will see that there is a couple things. So auto run, boot, version, all of those things are going to be in here. We can now go ahead and close out and eject this hard drive. So a few things to note about your computer that you're going to be using this on. It will end up using a lot of your processor, so it will get very, very hot. So if you have a computer that doesn't have a good amount of fans on it, you will need to put good fans on it because they will get hot. So make sure your computer has plenty of ventilation. The next thing is it does have to be an Intel processor. It cannot be an AMD. AMD is not supported with this. And the very last thing is Waves is functioning only on Intel network cards. So the motherboard that you use on this computer does need to be an Intel motherboard. Now, with that being said, you can try it on other computers that might have different hardware than an Intel network card on it. And it can work, but it does have to only be an Intel card. So if it has an Intel chipset on your network, you're good. And if it's an Intel processor, you are good. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to go ahead and put this USB drive in a donor computer that we're going to use. And then you need to activate your computer in the BIOS to boot off of this hard drive. So sometimes you're going to have to go into the BIOS and verify things to be able to boot off of this, but once you do that, then you will be able to boot onto this. The next thing, it does need to be connected into your Waves SoundGrid network. If it does not, it will go into a boot loop. So it does need to be connected before you power it on. If you do forget to plug in the network, just plug in the network and then reboot your computer. The other thing that I've had to do is I have needed to press enter on a keyboard every time I start this thing up. So I have a little wireless keyboard here that I use, and once I boot this thing, I just go ahead and press enter after a minute to let it boot through the BIOS and everything like that. So now I'm gonna go ahead and put this in the back of this, and we will get it booting. Okay, so I have booted the SoundGrid server, DIY, while it was connected to the network, and I then pressed enter after I let it boot for a second to get past the BIOS. Next thing that we're going to do is you're going to go over to your venue console. We can go options, devices, and then click on our Waves SoundGrid card, go show inventory, and then over here on servers, what we can do is we can click this tap down, and we'll see the SoundGrid Server 1 safe mode. Now it's going to say safe mode because this server is not made by Waves, so there's a special set of code that shows to the SoundGrid server what this specific server is. And because this is a DIY thing, it's just going to say safe mode. It does not mean that it's going to run at less throttling or anything like that. It just notifies Waves that you are on a DIY SoundGrid server and not on an official server. But you're able to run a good amount of plugins on this without any issues. So to select this, we want to go ahead and go into config mode, and then you can then select this server, and it will go ahead and say that server's been lost but now is connected again, and we can then see that plugin racks are ready, and we can press use racks, and if we want to, we can go and view information on this. So we can see that this is a Waves server and it's using version 10.1.0.2. It's in safe mode, that's totally fine, but then it shows me my CPU. So it's an i7, and then you can even go and set your network buffers and all that type of stuff. This server is working with the Avid WSG-HD card. So I have now given this console a SoundGrid server, but it's a DIY. Now you're probably wondering, how much processing can this DIY server actually do? And I have been running this console on a super rack over here with a MADI connection to Waves because I was waiting on the WSG card. And I got this server in, which is the X10, which is the brand new Waves Extreme Compact. And so my processor up here on the old SoundGrid DIY server was sitting around 56%, and this is now sitting at 41%, and that's with a whole lot of stuff. So a good amount of processing on vocals, a ton of EQs and delays, and then some slight stuff for monitors, and then I have a bunch of bus compression that's happening in here. So this was sitting up at about 59%, and this new server, the X10, is sitting around 41. So what I just did is I went ahead and instantiated 8 CLA 76s, 8 C6s, and 8 CLA 2As to kind of just demonstrate what processing would be like if you were using this on, say, 8 microphones and that was your vocal chain, you know. So I have all of those, and I've put in 1 H reverb in this, and my DSP is sitting at about 44%. So it is yellow. It does sometimes go down in the green, and once you're pushing audio through this, it'll kind of jump around a little bit. But as long as this little line right there is not in the red, you should be good. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this was a helpful video for you. Unfortunately, because this is a DIY type of thing, I'm not going to be able to provide support for you, but if you do head over to drewbrashler.com, I do have a blog post on this. But if you have a random piece of computer that's sitting around that maybe has a little bit powerful of a processor on it, you can try this. You can try this, and if you want to, you can download any of the SoundGrid Studio plugins or SoundGrid to be able to get that file to be able to make your own SoundGrid server at home, and then you could use this with your DAW or in a live setting like this. Thank you so much for watching.